Chosen One. The story begins in a quiet and solemn moment, the kind of moment that does not arrive by accident. You are asked to pause, to set aside the noise that normally surrounds your life, because this is not ordinary encouragement or passing inspiration. Heaven has arranged a private encounter, a moment that was meant to find you exactly where you are. This message is not meant for the crowd, not for the curious, and not for those who treat sacred things lightly. It has reached you because your spirit has been carrying battles that few people around you have ever truly seen. On the outside, you have continued moving through life with composure, strength, and responsibility, appearing stable to those who interact with you. Yet, beneath that calm surface, you have carried exhaustion, quiet grief, spiritual pressure, and questions that felt too deep or too complicated to explain. Chosen One. Heaven sees the difference between what people observe and what your soul has been enduring. There have been moments when you held yourself together in rooms where no one recognized the weight you were carrying. You smiled, answered questions, and fulfilled expectations while silently managing storms inside your heart. Many people assumed you were simply strong, unaware that your strength was often built on faith and perseverance rather than ease. God watched every one of those moments. Every silent tear, every late night of reflection, every prayer whispered when words felt insufficient was seen and remembered. In this season, God has begun speaking to you more privately than publicly. The quiet that has surrounded your life recently may have felt confusing at first. Certain conversations faded. Some relationships grew distant. The spaces where you once found constant activity became strangely silent. You may have wondered whether this stillness meant something had gone wrong, or whether you were drifting away from the life you once understood. Yet heaven reveals that this silence is not emptiness. It is shielding. Chosen One. God sometimes draws someone away from the noise of the world, so he can form something sacred within them. When a purpose is still fragile in its early stages, it must be protected from careless words, jealousy, misunderstanding, and premature exposure. Not everyone who surrounds you is able to carry the weight of what God is shaping in your life. Some people listen without understanding, while others react with comparison or doubt. Because of this, God often moves quietly, building what he intends to reveal later. Your isolation, therefore, is not abandonment. It is positioning. While others may think you are simply stepping away from the world or withdrawing from people, heaven knows that something far more intentional is taking place. God has been pulling you into a space of secrecy where your spirit can grow without interference. In this place, you begin learning that not every burden must be shared publicly. Some struggles belong only between you and God, because they shape your faith in ways that outside voices could easily disrupt. Chosen One. The same truth applies to the visions and insights forming within your heart. Not every idea God places in you is meant to be announced immediately. Some directions must mature quietly before they can be carried confidently into the open. The world often pressures people to explain every step of their journey, but divine guidance does not always follow that pattern. God sometimes asks for obedience without public explanation, because the purpose is still unfolding. This opening moment reveals the emotional heartbeat of your story. You are standing in the middle of a hidden transition. While the world around you may see only quietness or distance, heaven knows that deep preparation is taking place. God has seen every time you pretended to be fine when you were exhausted. He noticed every effort you made to remain steady, even when your spirit felt stretched beyond comfort. None of those moments were overlooked. Now heaven speaks directly to you with a gentle but clear instruction. This season must remain quiet. What God is building within you is too sacred to be handled by careless ears, jealous hearts, or immature understanding. Silence is not meant to isolate you from purpose, but to protect that purpose until it is ready to stand openly. Chosen One. This secrecy is not rooted in fear. it is rooted in stewardship. God is guarding what He has placed in your life because its timing matters. When the moment of revelation finally arrives, it will carry clarity and strength that could not have existed without this season of quiet formation. Chosen one, the silence that has recently surrounded your life has not appeared by accident, even though at times you may have interpreted it as emotional fatigue or simple withdrawal from the world around you. There were moments when you wondered whether you had grown tired of conversations that once felt natural, or whether the quiet distance forming between you and others meant you were becoming detached from life itself. Yet heaven reveals a different truth. This silence has been placed around you as a form of divine protection. What you assumed was exhaustion was often the quiet shield of God moving over your life, guarding something sacred that is still in the process of forming. When God begins preparing someone for a deeper assignment, He often creates distance between that person and the noise that once filled their environment. This distance may not always be obvious at first. It can appear gradually through fewer conversations, shorter interactions, or an unexpected lack of desire to share every detail of your thoughts with others. You may have noticed that situations where you once spoke freely now feel different, as though a quiet restraint has entered your spirit. Words that once flowed easily now pause before leaving your mouth. At times, you may even sense a gentle inner warning that certain things should remain unspoken. Chosen one, this restraint is not weakness, it is guidance. Heaven understands that the blessings, instructions, and breakthroughs forming around your life are still fragile in their early stages. Just as a seed must remain beneath the soil until its roots become strong enough to support growth, the direction God is revealing to you must sometimes remain hidden until the right moment arrives. If these revelations were exposed too early, they could easily be distorted by misunderstanding, criticism, or the careless opinions of people who do not understand what God is doing. Not every voice surrounding you carries the wisdom required to handle sacred information. Some people respond to unfamiliar ideas with doubt rather than curiosity. Others approach spiritual matters through comparison, insecurity, or subtle competition. Even well-intentioned advice can become harmful when it is given without spiritual discernment. God therefore shields certain parts of your journey from public conversation, not because your story lacks strength, but because it deserves protection while it is still developing. Chosen one, there have been rooms where God intentionally closed your mouth. In those moments, you may have felt uncertain, sensing that you had something meaningful to say, yet also feeling a strong inner hesitation. That hesitation was not fear. It was the wisdom of God guiding you away from conversations that could not carry the weight of what He is building in your life. Not everyone who stands near you is prepared to understand the purpose unfolding around you. Some people listen only to evaluate or compare. Others react impulsively to what they do not immediately comprehend. God knows that premature exposure can weaken a revelation before it has the chance to mature. When an idea is still forming, the wrong response can introduce doubt where confidence should grow. A careless comment can plant confusion where clarity was developing. By guiding you into silence, God removes those distractions and allows your spirit to hear Him more clearly. The distance you have felt from certain people is therefore not rejection, but preservation. Chosen one, imagine a chamber carved deep within a mountain, protected from wind, noise, and interruption. Within that chamber, a single voice can be heard with perfect clarity. This is the spiritual space God has been creating around you. The quiet season you are experiencing is a protected chamber where His direction can reach you without interference. While others continue speaking loudly in the world around you, your spirit has been drawn into a quieter place where listening becomes more important than explaining. Inside this sacred quiet, something else has been happening as well. An inner shift has begun unfolding within your thoughts and emotions, signaling that your life is entering a new spiritual transition. At first, this change may have felt subtle, almost difficult to describe. You may have noticed that your perspective on familiar situations began changing. Ideas that once seemed harmless now feel misaligned with the direction of your heart. Certain habits that once provided comfort no longer carry the same satisfaction. Chosen one, this awakening does not arrive through dramatic announcements. It grows quietly, like dawn slowly replacing the darkness of night. Your thoughts begin reflecting deeper questions about purpose, integrity, and alignment with God. The values shaping your decisions become clearer. Situations that once felt neutral suddenly reveal deeper meaning. In many ways, your awareness expands beyond what you previously recognized. Alongside this change in thought comes an increase in spiritual sensitivity. You begin noticing how environments affect your energy and focus. Some places feel heavier than they once did, as though the atmosphere carries tension that your spirit now recognizes. Conversations that once seemed ordinary may leave you feeling drained or unsettled. Words that carry gossip, negativity, or hidden resentment no longer pass by unnoticed. Your heart responds differently because the Holy Spirit is sharpening your discernment. Chosen one, this increased sensitivity is not emotional instability. It is spiritual awareness. When God prepares someone for a new assignment, He often refines their ability to recognize what aligns with His presence and what does not. Just as a musician learns to distinguish subtle variations in sound, your spirit is learning to detect the difference between environments that nurture your calling and those that weaken it. This process can create a sense of disconnection from certain people and situations. Individuals who once felt familiar may now seem distant from the direction your life is taking. Their priorities may revolve around concerns that no longer hold the same importance for you. Conversations that once lasted for hours may now feel repetitive or empty. At times, you may even wonder whether you are changing too quickly or leaving behind relationships that once mattered deeply. Yet, chosen one, heaven reassures you that this shift was arranged long before you recognized it. The Holy Spirit has been guiding your growth step by step, preparing you for a season that requires greater clarity and focus. What feels unfamiliar now is actually evidence that you are moving closer to the purpose God designed for you. The discomfort you sometimes feel in certain environments is a sign that your spirit is outgrowing spaces that once felt comfortable. Because this new season is sacred, God also gives you a gentle warning. Not everything you sense should be spoken immediately. Revelation is powerful, but its strength can diminish when exposed too early. When insights are shared before they are fully understood, they can become distorted through misunderstanding or criticism. Silence, therefore, becomes an act of wisdom rather than secrecy. Chosen one, there is a time to speak and a time to guard what God reveals. In this season, you are learning the discipline of holding certain insights within your heart until the right moment arrives. This discipline does not suppress truth, it protects it. When the time comes for those revelations to be shared, they will carry greater clarity and strength because they were allowed to mature quietly. Until that moment arrives, the quiet space surrounding you remains sacred. The silence that once felt lonely now reveals itself as intentional protection. Inside that stillness, God continues shaping your understanding, refining your discernment, and strengthening the purpose unfolding within you. The shift you feel inside your mind and spirit is not confusion. It is the beginning of a transition that heaven prepared long before you recognized its presence. Chosen one, as the quiet season deepens and the meaning behind your silence becomes clearer, another truth begins to unfold with surprising weight. The private pain you have survived was never meaningless. The nights when your heart felt heavy, the moments when disappointment seemed to arrive from directions you did not expect, and the silent battles you fought when no one else was looking were not random chapters scattered across your life. Each of those moments became evidence that heaven has been preserving you for something greater than you could see at the time. There were seasons when loss appeared without warning. Relationships you trusted shifted suddenly. Promises you believed would remain stable dissolved before your eyes. Situations you once depended on collapsed in ways that left you searching for understanding. During those times, you may have asked God questions that had no immediate answer. You wondered why certain wounds were allowed to touch your life when your intentions were sincere and your heart was open. Chosen one, what makes your story remarkable is not the fact that pain appeared, but the way your spirit responded to it. Many people carry their wounds in ways that slowly reshape their character into something hardened and guarded. Pain can easily become a permanent lens through which the world is viewed. Yet, by God's grace, that transformation never fully took hold in you. Though you experienced betrayal, disappointment, and moments of deep grief, something within you remained soft enough to continue believing, wise enough to continue learning, and spiritually awake enough to keep seeking God, even when circumstances felt confusing. This preservation was not accidental. Heaven was guarding your life long before you realized how much protection you were receiving. There were moments when the weight of your experiences could have easily turned your spirit toward bitterness. Situations that wounded you deeply could have shaped your identity around resentment or fear. Yet each time that path appeared, something within you resisted it. You chose reflection over retaliation. You chose growth over despair. You chose faith over surrender to darkness. Chosen one, that choice was not merely personal strength. It was divine preservation working quietly in your life. God was protecting the essence of who you were created to be. Even when circumstances tried to pull you toward emotional hardness, His presence remained near enough to guide your heart back toward healing. In ways you may not have noticed at the time, He kept reminding you that pain did not have the authority to define your identity. When you look back now, you may begin recognizing moments where protection appeared in subtle forms. Situations that could have caused permanent damage were redirected before they reached their full impact. Opportunities that looked promising at first but carried hidden danger were closed before you could step too far into them. Certain relationships ended unexpectedly, yet later you realized that their influence might have led you away from your purpose. Chosen one, these patterns reveal something important. You were chosen long before you were wounded. Your calling was not created in response to your struggles. It existed before those struggles ever appeared. The battles you faced were not shaping your purpose from nothing. They were refining the strength required to carry it. This understanding changes how you interpret your past. The pain you survived was not evidence that God had overlooked you. It was evidence that He was actively preserving you while preparing you. Each silent battle added another layer of wisdom to your spirit. Each disappointment sharpened your discernment. Each night when you held yourself together through prayer and reflection strengthened your relationship with the one guiding your life. Chosen one, the emotional depth of your journey now becomes part of the foundation for what lies ahead. Your next elevation will require the same resilience that carried you through those hidden struggles. Yet this new stage also demands greater secrecy, because the environment around you contains motives that are not always pure. When God begins lifting someone into clearer purpose, the change often exposes intentions that previously remained hidden. Not everyone who stood near you in earlier seasons will understand the transformation unfolding now. Some people may react with confusion or curiosity, while others may respond with subtle resistance. The elevation God is preparing will illuminate truths that have remained concealed. Motives that once blended quietly into the background may suddenly become visible when your path begins moving upward. Because of this, heaven keeps you sheltered within the silence you are currently experiencing. The quiet around your life is not only protecting your growth, it is also preventing unnecessary conflict while God continues shaping what comes next. Your story is entering a stage where clarity will naturally reveal what once remained hidden. Chosen one, as this preparation continues, another layer of reality emerges around you. The atmosphere of spiritual warfare has intensified. You may have sensed this change in ways that felt difficult to explain. Situations that once seemed stable may suddenly carry unexpected tension. Emotional waves that you thought had already passed sometimes return briefly without clear reason. Old patterns that you believed were finished attempt to reappear, as though inviting you to revisit them. These experiences are not random. When someone approaches a new level of clarity and purpose, the unseen realm often reacts. Darkness recognizes the significance of transformation long before people around you understand it. As your life moves closer to the assignment God prepared, forces that once influenced your path attempt to regain access before that shift becomes permanent. Chosen one. The difference now is that your response has changed. In earlier seasons, you may have reacted to pressure quickly, trying to solve every situation or respond to every emotional trigger immediately. Now, a new discipline has entered your life. You pause before reacting. You observe situations with discernment rather than rushing into them. Your silence has become a form of strength rather than withdrawal. This change has unsettled the enemy. Darkness thrives on predictability. When a person reacts in familiar ways, manipulation becomes easier. Yet your stillness has disrupted those patterns. Because you no longer respond as you once did, the strategies that previously influenced you have lost their effectiveness. The enemy cannot easily predict your next move because you are now guided by reflection and prayer rather than impulsive reaction. Chosen one. This loss of access creates desperation in the unseen realm. When influence begins disappearing, attempts are often made to regain control through distraction or emotional pressure. Old temptations may reappear unexpectedly. Individuals connected to past seasons may attempt to re-enter your life without clear explanation. Situations that once stirred strong emotional responses may suddenly resurface, testing whether your growth has truly taken root. These moments are not evidence that you are failing. They are confirmation that something significant is changing. Each attempt to pull you backward reveals that your next step forward carries real impact. Darkness does not react strongly to movements that carry no significance. The intensity you sometimes feel is simply the resistance that appears when transformation becomes unavoidable. Chosen one. God understands this battle and has already prepared the protection surrounding you. The same silence that shields your growth also confuses the forces attempting to disrupt it. Because you are no longer announcing every step or reacting to every challenge, your path remains hidden from the strategies that once tried to interfere with it. Your discipline, your quiet focus, and your refusal to return to old patterns have become forms of spiritual armor. What once appeared as vulnerability has turned into wisdom. Your life is no longer easily influenced by voices that once carried weight in your decisions. As that independence grows, the enemy's influence continues shrinking. Heaven now assures you of something important. You are covered, hidden, and protected during this stage of transition. The warfare you sense around you is not a sign that you are unprotected. It is a confirmation that your next step carries significance. The resistance surrounding your life exists because your movement forward threatens systems that once depended on your uncertainty. Chosen one. Darkness senses the rise taking place within your life, even when the world around you has not yet noticed it. Yet God remains far ahead of every strategy designed to hinder you. The same divine presence that preserved you through past struggles continues guiding you now. Every step forward unfolds under His protection. What you are experiencing is therefore not chaos, but confirmation. The battles surrounding you reveal that your journey is moving in a direction that carries real influence. The silence you now walk in is not emptiness. It is the protected space where God prepares you to step fully into the clarity, purpose, and impact that have been forming quietly throughout your life. Chosen one. The season you are now walking through may appear quiet from the outside, but heaven reveals that it is anything but empty. You are in what God calls a hidden incubation season. To human eyes, this stage can feel confusing because little seems visible. Progress appears slow, recognition remains absent, and the world around you continues moving as if nothing significant is happening in your life. Yet heaven describes your condition in a very different way. God compares you to a seed placed deep within the soil. A seed, when first buried, looks as though it has disappeared. Anyone observing the ground above it would assume nothing is taking place. The surface remains still and silent, offering no obvious sign that life is forming beneath it. Yet beneath that quiet surface, something intense is happening. The seed begins breaking open. The form it once held must collapse so that a completely new structure can emerge. Roots begin pushing downward, while the first fragile signs of growth reach upward toward light that the seed cannot yet see. Chosen one, this process is not gentle. For the seed, it is a violent transformation. The outer shell that once protected it must split apart. Everything that previously defined its shape is rearranged so that growth can begin. If the seed could speak, it might interpret this breaking as destruction. Yet heaven calls it preparation. What appears like burial is actually the beginning of life in a new form. In the same way, the season you are experiencing may sometimes feel like being placed beneath the surface of life. Visibility has decreased. Opportunities that once seemed open have temporarily withdrawn. Certain relationships have faded into silence. Familiar routines that once filled your days may no longer hold the same presence. At times, you may have wondered whether you were being forgotten or overlooked. Yet, chosen one, what feels like burial is actually incubation. God has allowed you to enter a hidden environment so that the transformation happening inside you can unfold without interference. Just as the seed must remain beneath the soil until its roots grow strong enough to support new life, your growth must occur in a protected place before it can withstand public exposure. Low visibility is therefore not a sign of insignificance. It is divine concealment. God knows that premature exposure can damage something that is still developing. When a seed breaks through the soil too early, its fragile structure can easily be destroyed by wind, animals, or changing weather. The timing of its emergence determines whether it will survive. In the same way, God guards the timing of your unveiling. Chosen one, during this incubation season, God has been removing elements of your life that once felt essential. Certain relationships ended without clear explanation. Familiar comforts disappeared or changed. Spaces that once provided stability began closing quietly around you. At first, these changes may have felt painful, as though something valuable was being taken away. Yet heaven reveals a deeper intention behind every removal. God was protecting the process unfolding inside you. When growth is still fragile, it must be shielded from influences that could disrupt it. Jealousy, misunderstanding, and spiritual immaturity have the power to damage a calling before it has the strength to stand on its own. Not everyone surrounding your life carries the maturity required to handle what God is building within you. Some people respond to unfamiliar growth with comparison or doubt. Others react with subtle competition or insecurity. For this reason, God has been carefully rearranging your environment. The removal of certain relationships was not an act of punishment, but an act of protection. Those individuals belonged to earlier chapters of your story, chapters that served their purpose during seasons when your identity was still forming. As your calling began moving toward a new level of clarity, their presence could no longer support the direction God intended for you. Chosen one, even the comforts you once depended on had to change. When people remain surrounded by familiar structures, they often rely on those structures for identity and stability. Yet God sometimes removes those supports so that a person learns to depend more deeply on Him. The quiet season you are experiencing has allowed your relationship with God to become stronger and more direct. Without the distractions that once filled your attention, you have begun hearing His guidance with greater clarity. This hidden incubation also protects your emotional and spiritual growth from sabotage. When transformation begins affecting a person's character, it naturally challenges the expectations of those around them. Some people feel threatened when someone close to them begins changing in ways they cannot control. If your growth had unfolded publicly from the beginning, certain individuals might have attempted to slow it through criticism, pressure, or subtle discouragement. By placing you in a concealed season, God prevented those reactions from interfering with your development. He allowed your roots to grow deep before anyone could attempt to uproot them. The quietness surrounding your life has been a protective layer, much like the soil covering a seed while it strengthens beneath the surface. Chosen one. The most powerful part of this process lies in what happens next. A seed does not remain buried forever. The same soil that once concealed it eventually becomes the ground from which it emerges. When the roots below are strong enough and the structure above is ready to support growth, the seed breaks through the surface in a way that cannot be hidden. The revelation that follows is unmistakable. What once looked like an empty patch of soil suddenly carries visible life. The transformation that occurred beneath the surface becomes undeniable. No one can claim that the growth appeared by accident, because the evidence of its development stands clearly before them. Heaven declares that your story will follow the same pattern. When God chooses to reveal what He has been growing in secret, the result will carry unmistakable clarity. The wisdom you gained through hidden seasons, the resilience formed through silent battles, and the spiritual authority shaped through prayer and reflection will become visible in ways that cannot be ignored. Chosen one. This revelation will not be about personal glory. God's intention is not to display you as a symbol of human achievement. Instead, the unveiling will demonstrate that the transformation in your life could only have come from Him. The timing, the depth of change, and the strength of the character He built within you will make it clear that no human strategy produced it. Because of this, no enemy will be able to claim responsibility for shaping your destiny. The challenges they introduced into your life were unable to destroy what God planted. Instead, those pressures often contributed to the growth that strengthened your calling. The same opposition that attempted to bury your potential became part of the soil that helped it grow. False supporters will also find themselves unable to claim credit when your life begins revealing the work God accomplished. Some people may have observed parts of your journey from a distance, but they were not present during the nights of prayer, reflection, and perseverance that shaped your spirit. The transformation occurred in hidden places where only God witnessed the full process. Chosen one. When the moment of revelation arrives, it will carry the unmistakable signature of divine work. The peace you carry, the wisdom guiding your decisions, and the clarity shaping your path will reveal that your life has been shaped by something far greater than human approval or recognition. The incubation season you are walking through now therefore holds extraordinary significance. It is the sacred stage where your roots are deepening and your structure is forming. Though the world may not yet see the growth taking place, heaven knows exactly what is unfolding beneath the surface. And when the time comes for that growth to rise into the light, it will stand as undeniable evidence that what God plants in secret eventually becomes visible in power. The conclusion brings the chosen one into a place of quiet confidence. They now understand that this season of silence was never a curse. It was a divine strategy. Heaven did not send this message to the crowd because the crowd would not understand the weight of what God is doing. This message was private because the assignment is private. The work is sacred. The process is hidden. God has been building something so specific, so delicate, and so powerful that it had to be protected from premature exposure. The chosen one realizes that their isolation was not evidence of being forgotten. It was evidence of being trusted. God trusted them enough to pull them aside, quiet their environment, and form them in secrecy. The things that once confused them now begin to make sense. The drifting people, the heavy conversations, the growing discomfort with shallow spaces, and the deep pull toward quiet were all signs that heaven was rearranging their life from the inside out. They were not being buried to disappear. They were being buried to rise. The story closes with a prophetic sense of hope. Something has already shifted in the unseen realm. Doors are about to open, burdens are about to lift, and answers are about to come with unmistakable clarity. But the chosen one's role is not to announce, prove, or explain. Their role is to remain quiet, obedient, watchful, and close to God. This next chapter will speak for itself when heaven decides the time is right. Until then, silence is not weakness. Silence is worship. Silence is wisdom. Silence is protection. And the breakthrough that is coming will be proof that God was working the entire time.